Japan is often described as calm, ordered, and precise. From a distance, it appears balanced and controlled, shaped by careful design and long tradition. But beneath that surface lies one of the most active regions on the planet. Here, the Earth is never still. Forces deep below the ground constantly reshape the land, even when nothing appears to move. Japan exists where multiple tectonic plates collide. These massive slabs of the planet's crust press against one another, slide beneath each other, and release enormous energy. Earthquakes, volcanoes, and rising mountains are not rare events here. They are part of an ongoing process that continues every day, mostly unseen. The country itself is a product of this motion. Without it, Japan would not exist at all. This constant activity has shaped every aspect of the landscape. Mountains rise sharply from narrow plains. Coastlines fracture into cliffs and deep bays. Volcanoes form chains that cut across the islands, some quiet, others still breathing heat and steam into the air. Even where the land appears stable, the forces below remain active, slowly building toward change. Life in Japan developed inside this reality. For thousands of years, people settled on land that could shift without warning. Entire villages were built near volcanoes. Cities grew along fault lines. Rather than fleeing these dangers, generations learned to live alongside them. Risk was not something to eliminate, it was something to understand. This relationship created a different way of seeing the natural world. In Japan, nature is not a backdrop, it is a presence. Mountains, rivers, forests, and oceans are treated with attention and respect. Not because they are beautiful, but because they are powerful. The land provides, but it also reminds people of their limits. The rhythm of life here reflects that awareness. Seasons mark change clearly and decisively. Spring arrives briefly, then fades. Winter brings silence and restraint. Nothing is assumed to last forever. This understanding is not pessimistic. It creates focus. It encourages preparation, discipline, and acceptance. Japan is often called modern, yet its foundations are ancient. Long before technology and cities, the islands were shaped by fire and water. That process never stopped. The country remains a place where the earth reveals how it works, openly and continuously. Mountains rise, land sinks, heat escapes from deep below. New ground forms while old ground disappears. This film is not about Japan as a destination. It is about Japan as a process. A place where the planet itself is still at work. To understand this country, one must look beneath its surface, beyond its calm appearance, and into the forces that never rest. Japan does not stand apart from nature. It exists inside it, shaped by movement, risk, and constant change. Japan did not form as a single landmass. It emerged from collision. Beneath the surrounding seas, massive tectonic plates continue to press, slide, and sink beneath one another. This movement is slow on a human scale, but relentless. Over millions of years, it lifted mountains from the ocean floor and fractured them into Long Island chains. What we now call Japan is the visible edge of this ongoing process. 4 major tectonic plates meet in this region. Their boundaries cut beneath the islands, creating zones of intense pressure. When that pressure releases, the ground shakes. Earthquakes are not anomalies here. They are a regular expression of forces constantly at work below the surface. Most are small, barely noticed. Others reshape coastlines, alter rivers, and leave lasting marks on cities. Volcanoes rise along these plate boundaries, forming a chain that stretches across the country. Some erupt violently, others release heat quietly through steam and gas. Together, they reveal the energy stored beneath the land. Japan contains more active volcanoes than almost any other place on Earth, each one a reminder that the ground itself is temporary. This geology explains the country's dramatic terrain. Mountains rise sharply from narrow coastal plains, leaving a little flat land for settlement. Rivers descend quickly, carving steep valleys and carrying sediment toward the sea. Coastlines break into bays, cliffs, and inlets shaped by both uplift and erosion. The landscape feels compressed, intense, and constantly in motion. Living on such land requires adaptation. From the earliest settlements, people learned that stability could not be assumed. Buildings were designed to bend rather than resist. Communities developed systems to respond quickly to disaster. Awareness of the ground beneath became part of daily life, shaping architecture, planning, and habit. The sea plays a role in this process as well. Subduction zones offshore generate earthquakes and tsunamis, linking coastal life directly to distant tectonic movement. Waves can arrive hours after an unseen event deep below the ocean floor. This connection reinforced the understanding that danger does not always announce itself clearly or immediately. Japan's creation through collision shaped more than geography. It shaped mindset. The land taught its inhabitants that permanence is fragile and preparation is essential. Control has limits. Flexibility matters more than resistance. These lessons were learned not through theory, but through repeated experience. The country exists because the earth is active here. Mountains continue to rise. Land continues to shift. New terrain forms while old ground disappears. Japan is not finished. It is still being built slowly and continuously by forces far older than human history. To understand the country, one must begin with this collision because everything else follows from it. Volcanoes define Japan in ways that are both visible and hidden. They rise above forests and coastlines, but their influence extends far beyond what can be seen. Heat from deep underground shapes rivers, lakes, and coastlines, linking fire and water into a single system. In Japan, these elements are not opposites. They work together to form the land. Chains of volcanoes stretch across the islands, some quiet, others releasing steam and gas into the air. Their eruptions have created wide plateaus, steep ridges, and deep basins. Over time, collapsed craters filled with rain and meltwater, becoming lakes surrounded by mountains. What appears calm on the surface often carries a violent geological history beneath it. Water follows the paths created by this activity. Rivers move quickly through steep terrain, carving valleys and transporting minerals from the interior to the sea. Hot springs emerge where groundwater meets rising heat, turning volcanic energy into warmth that can be felt at the surface. These sources of water have shaped settlement patterns for centuries, drawing people to specific places long before modern infrastructure existed. The relationship between volcanoes and water also creates fertile environments. Ash and lava break down into mineral-rich soil that supports dense forests and agriculture. Life thrives where destruction once occurred. This cycle repeats across Japan, reinforcing the idea that instability does not prevent growth. It often enables it. In coastal regions, volcanic rock meets the sea. Cliffs rise sharply from the water, while bays form where softer ground has eroded. The ocean carries sediment shaped by eruptions far inland, connecting mountains to distant shorelines. Even marine ecosystems feel the effects of geological activity, influenced by currents, temperature, and underwater formations. People learn to recognize these patterns early. Villages formed near hot springs. Towns grew beside rivers that provided both water and transport. Over time, these locations became centers of culture, economy, and ritual. Natural forces guided development more than political planning ever could. Volcanoes also imposed limits. Eruptions destroyed fields and forced relocation. Ash darkened skies and altered climate temporarily. These events reinforced respect for forces beyond human control. Rather than attempting to dominate the landscape, communities adapted their practices, building flexibility into daily life. This constant interaction between fire and water explains the intensity of Japan's terrain. Nothing here is flat for long. The land rises, falls, fractures, and reshapes itself continuously. Even stillness feels temporary. The ground holds memory of what came before and signals what may come again. Understanding Japan requires seeing these connections. Volcanoes are not isolated features. Water is not merely a resource. Together, they form a system that creates beauty, risk, and renewal at the same time. The land reflects an ongoing dialogue between elements, shaping a country where nature remains active, present, and deeply influential. Life in Japan has always been shaped by uncertainty. Earthquakes arrive without warning. Volcanoes can awaken after decades of silence. Storms and shifting coastlines remind people that stability is temporary. Over time, this reality shaped not only how communities were built, but how people thought about risk, loss, and endurance. Rather than viewing disasters as rare interruptions, Japan learned to treat them as part of life. Settlements were rebuilt in the same locations after destruction, often multiple times. This was not stubbornness, it was practicality. Fertile land, access to water, and proximity to trade routes mattered more than the promise of safety. Risk was accepted as a condition of survival. Architecture reflects this mindset. Traditional wooden buildings were designed to move rather than resist. Light materials allowed structures to sway during earthquakes, reducing collapse. Flexibility mattered more than strength. Even modern engineering continues this philosophy, using movement and balance to protect against forces that cannot be stopped. Preparation became cultural habit. Emergency drills, building standards, and early warning systems are part of daily awareness. Knowledge is passed down quietly, embedded in routine rather than fear. Children grow up understanding that the ground can move and that response matters more than panic. This acceptance extends beyond construction. It influences how time is perceived. Plans are made with awareness that change can arrive suddenly. Long-term certainty is rare. Instead, attention is placed on the present moment and on readiness. Life continues without denying risk, but without being consumed by it. Uncertainty also shapes social bonds. In moments of crisis, communities rely on cooperation. Neighbors become essential. Shared responsibility replaces individual isolation. These patterns reinforce trust at the local level, strengthening connections that outlast disasters themselves. Even language reflects this awareness. Words and expressions emphasize transience, impermanence, and return. Nothing is framed as permanent or guaranteed. This perspective does not diminish value, it intensifies it. What exists now is appreciated precisely because it may not last. Modern Japan carries this inherited understanding forward. Technology has reduced some risks, but it has not removed uncertainty. Earthquakes still occur. Volcanoes remain active. The land continues to shift. What has changed is the ability to respond, not the nature of the threat. Living with uncertainty does not mean living in fear. In Japan, it means living attentively. The environment demands respect rather than control. Adaptation becomes instinctive. Resilience becomes quiet rather than dramatic. This approach explains how life continues in one of the most geologically active regions on Earth. Uncertainty is not treated as failure. It is treated as reality. By accepting it, Japan built a society capable of enduring repeated disruption without losing coherence. The land moves, life adjusts, and the rhythm continues. Japan's extreme geology does not prevent life from flourishing. It shapes how life adapts. Across the islands, ecosystems developed under conditions that would challenge many species elsewhere. Steep terrain, heavy rainfall, volcanic soil, and seasonal extremes created environments where survival depends on flexibility rather than stability. Dense forests cover much of the country, growing on slopes formed by ancient eruptions and uplift. Trees take root in thin soil layered over rock, drawing nutrients from minerals released by volcanic activity. Moss, ferns, and undergrowth thrive in constant moisture, creating landscapes that feel ancient and continuous, even though the ground beneath them is always changing. In colder regions, such as northern Japan, wildlife adapted to harsh winters and deep snow. Animals learn to move efficiently through difficult terrain, conserving energy and relying on seasonal patterns. In warmer areas, species adjusted to humidity, heat, and frequent storms. Across the country, life evolved not toward comfort, but toward resilience. Rivers and wetlands support additional layers of biodiversity. Fast-moving streams carry oxygen-rich water through valleys, sustaining fish and plant life adapted to rapid flow. Seasonal flooding reshapes riverbanks, renewing soil and preventing stagnation. These cycles maintain balance without human intervention. Marine ecosystems reflect the same principle. Powerful ocean currents collide near Japan's coast, mixing warm and cold waters. This creates one of the most productive marine environments in the world. Nutrients rise from the depths, supporting complex food chains that extend from microscopic organisms to large predators. The sea mirrors the land, shaped by movement and constant exchange. Human presence altered these ecosystems, but it never fully replaced them. For centuries, people depended on forests, rivers, and oceans without exhausting them completely. Practices developed around observation and restraint, shaped by experience rather than theory. Nature remained active, not managed into stillness. Even in protected areas today, the influence of geological forces remains visible. Landslides reshape forests. Volcanic gas alters plant growth. Earthquakes redirect water underground. These changes are not treated as damage alone. They are understood as part of a larger process that sustains life over time. Japan's ecosystems reveal an important truth. Stability is not required for abundance. Life does not wait for the ground to settle. It adapts, diversifies, and continues within uncertainty. Pressure becomes a catalyst rather than an obstacle. This natural resilience reflects the broader pattern seen across the islands. Whether in forests, rivers, or oceans, survival depends on responsiveness to change. Nature here does not resist force. It responds to it. Through this constant adjustment, Japan remains one of the most biologically rich regions, shaped by some of the planet's most powerful geological forces. Human settlement in Japan never stood apart from the land. From the earliest communities, people built their lives inside a landscape defined by movement, risk, and limitation. Villages formed where water, soil, and shelter aligned, often in places shaped by volcanic and tectonic forces. These choices reflected necessity rather than ambition. Mountains restricted expansion, compressing populations into narrow plains and valleys. This concentration influenced how communities organized themselves. Space became valuable. Resources were shared carefully. Cooperation mattered more than individual dominance. The land imposed boundaries that shaped social structure as much as the geography. Over time, people learned to read subtle signals in their environment. Changes in water flow, soil condition, and seasonal patterns guided decisions about planting, building, and travel. Knowledge accumulated slowly, passed through observation and practice, rather than written instruction. Survival depended on attention rather than control. Settlement patterns reveal this adaptation. Towns developed along rivers that provided water and transport. Villages clustered near fertile soil created by volcanic deposits. Coastal communities balanced fishing with awareness of storms and tides. Each location reflected a negotiation between opportunity and risk. Rather than reshaping the land entirely, people adjusted to it. Terraced fields followed natural contours. Forests were managed selectively, preserving stability while allowing use. Materials came from nearby sources, chosen for flexibility and availability. Buildings were designed to fit within existing conditions rather than override them. This approach created a subtle integration between human activity and the environment. The landscape remained recognizable, not flattened or simplified. Traces of human presence appear woven into hillsides, riverbanks, and coastlines without dominating them. Nature remained active, not reduced to background. Urban growth followed the same principle, even as cities expanded. Despite modern scale and density, Japanese cities often reflect underlying geography. Rivers still guide movement. Hills interrupt grids. Earthquake risk continues to influence design and infrastructure. Technology changed tools, but not fundamental constraints. This long relationship shaped cultural values. Respect for space, order, and restraint emerged not from ideology, but from lived experience. Excess carried consequences. Balance mattered. Awareness became instinctive. These values are often mistaken for aesthetics alone, but they originated in survival. Even today, people remain closely attuned to their surroundings. Weather patterns, seasonal changes, and environmental alerts remain part of daily awareness. Life continues with an understanding that conditions can shift quickly, requiring adjustment rather than resistance. Japan's human landscape is not a story of domination over nature. It is a story of coexistence shaped by necessity. The land did not yield completely, and people did not withdraw. Instead, both adapted over time. This relationship explains how a dense population continues to exist within one of the most dynamic environments on Earth. Japan's landscape creates a rhythm that governs daily life. Mountains rise close to the sea, forcing weather systems upward and shaping intense seasonal patterns. Rain falls heavily. Snow accumulates deep in winter. Rivers respond quickly, swelling and retreating with little delay. These cycles are not background events. They define how the country moves through the year. Water travels fast across the islands. Short rivers descend steep slopes, carrying snowmelt and rainfall toward the coast. Flooding reshapes valleys regularly, renewing soil while threatening settlements. Rather than attempting to stop this movement entirely, communities learned to anticipate it. Levees, channels, and seasonal planning reflect acceptance of change rather than denial. Mountains intensify this rhythm. They divide regions, creating local climates that can differ dramatically over short distances. One valley may remain frozen while another warms. Coastal areas experience mild winters while inland regions face heavy snow. These contrasts shaped regional identities, agriculture, and movement. Japan became a collection of seasonal worlds existing side by side. The changing seasons are felt clearly and briefly. Spring arrives suddenly, bringing blossoms that last only days. Summer follows with heat and rain, feeding forests and fields. Autumn cools the land, marking harvest and transition. Winter arrives with restraint, quieting activity, and narrowing focus. Each season demands adjustment rather than resistance. This awareness of seasonal cycles shaped cultural habits. Work followed natural timing. Food reflected availability. Festivals marked transitions rather than fixed dates. Life adapted to repetition and return, reinforcing the idea that nothing remains static for long. The intensity of these changes sharpened attention. People learned to observe subtle shifts in light, temperature, and wind. Preparation became routine. Storage, repair, and maintenance filled the quieter months. Movement slowed when conditions demanded it. Activity resumed when opportunity returned. Water also links land and sea. Rivers carry minerals to coastal waters, supporting marine ecosystems. Seasonal currents interact with runoff, influencing fishing patterns and ocean life. What happens in the mountains affects the coast, tying distant regions into a single system. Modern infrastructure softened some extremes, but did not remove the rhythm. Weather still disrupts travel. Snow still isolates regions. Heavy rain still reshapes rivers. Technology responds, but it does not replace awareness. The seasons continue to set the pace. This rhythm explains much about Japan's balance. Life is organized around change rather than permanence. Effort concentrates where conditions allow. Rest follows intensity. The land dictates timing, and people respond. Japan's seasons are not symbols. They are systems. Mountains, water, and climate interact continuously, creating a cycle that repeats without becoming predictable. Within this movement, life learned how to persist, guided by rhythm rather than control. In Japan, belief is closely tied to place. Mountains, forests, rivers, and waterfalls are not seen as neutral scenery. They are treated as living presences shaped by forces older than human memory. This perspective developed naturally in a land where the ground moves, water shifts, and seasons transform the environment without warning. Long before organized religion took form, people associated natural features with meaning. Peaks that rose sharply from the land, springs that emerged warm from the earth, and ancient trees that survived centuries of change became points of focus. These places were respected not because they were distant or abstract, but because they were powerful and present. As spiritual traditions developed, they did not separate humans from nature. Instead, they reinforced the idea that people exist within a larger system. Shrines were placed where landforms already inspired attention. Paths followed natural contours. Structures remained modest, allowing the environment to remain dominant. Belief adapted to geography rather than reshaping it. This approach influenced daily life. Rituals marked seasonal transitions and environmental change. Offerings acknowledged gratitude and uncertainty rather than control. Prayer was less about request and more about recognition. The land was not something to conquer, but something to understand. Even today, sacred spaces often feel inseparable from their surroundings. Shrines sit within forests, near water, or beneath mountains. Silence, shade, and distance from urban noise shape the experience. These places do not explain belief. They express it through atmosphere rather than instruction. This relationship between spirituality and landscape reflects a deeper acceptance of impermanence. When the ground can shift and the seasons transform quickly, permanence loses meaning. Belief becomes flexible, focused on balance rather than certainty. Life continues with awareness rather than assurance. Natural disasters reinforce this perspective. After earthquakes or storms, rituals acknowledged loss without demanding explanation. Rebuilding followed without denial of risk. Spiritual practices offered continuity without promising protection from change. They supported resilience rather than illusion. The presence of belief in Japan is subtle. It does not dominate daily life, but it remains visible in gestures, architecture, and respect for space. Sacredness is not confined to temples alone. It extends into ordinary landscapes shaped by water, stone, and growth. This quiet spirituality mirrors the land itself. Powerful forces operate beneath calm surfaces. Meaning exists without declaration. The environment teaches attentiveness rather than obedience. Through this relationship, belief remains integrated rather than separate. Japan's sacred landscapes reveal how people learn to live with forces beyond control. Rather than seeking mastery, they cultivated awareness. The land shaped belief, and belief reinforced respect for the land. Together, they formed a system that supported continuity within constant change. Japan's identity has always been shaped by water. Surrounded by ocean, the country developed as an island nation connected to the world, yet never fully open to it. The sea created distance, but it also enabled movement, trade, and exchange. This balance between separation and connection defined how Japan interacted with forces beyond its shores. For long periods, the ocean served as a natural boundary. Storms, currents, and long crossings limited constant contact with the mainland. This separation allowed local systems, traditions, and governance to develop without continuous external pressure. Japan evolved at its own pace, shaped internally by its landscape and climate. At the same time, the sea was never an absolute barrier. Traders, travelers, and ideas arrived by ship. Technologies, crops, and beliefs crossed the water selectively, absorbed and adapted rather than copied. Japan did not reject influence, it filtered it. What arrived was reshaped to fit local conditions, geography, and values. Coastal communities live directly within this tension. Fishing villages depended on the ocean's rhythms, learning to read tides, currents, and weather. The sea provided food and livelihood, but demanded constant attention. Sudden storms and powerful waves reinforced respect for forces that could not be controlled. Life near the coast required discipline and awareness. Marine environments mirrored this intensity. Cold and warm currents collide near Japan's shores, creating rich waters that support complex ecosystems. These conditions sustained fishing traditions that lasted centuries. Knowledge of the sea passed through experience rather than instruction, shaping both economy and culture. Isolation influenced social structure as well. With limited land and clear boundaries, communities developed strong internal cohesion. Cooperation mattered. Resources were managed carefully. External threats felt distant yet possible, reinforcing readiness without constant confrontation. Periods of deliberate isolation strengthened this inward focus. By limiting contact, Japan preserved internal stability while continuing to observe the outside world from a distance. When engagement resumed, it occurred on measured terms. The sea allowed choice. It offered connection without forcing constant exposure. In modern times, technology reduced physical distance, but the psychological influence of the ocean remains. Japan still approaches global interaction carefully, balancing openness with preservation. Movement continues across the water, but identity remains grounded at home. The sea shaped Japan's sense of boundary without creating isolation. It allowed the country to exist between openness and restraint. This position fostered adaptability without loss of coherence. The islands learned to absorb influence while maintaining continuity. Japan's relationship with the ocean reflects a broader pattern seen across the land. Forces arrive, change occurs, response follows carefully rather than impulsively. The sea did not define Japan as separate or connected alone. It defined how connection itself was managed. Through this balance, the island nation maintained stability within a constantly shifting world. Japan's relationship with memory is not built on nostalgia or admiration of the past. It is shaped by repetition, discipline, and practical response. In a land where disruption is expected, memory became a tool for survival rather than a record of what once existed. Earthquakes, fires, floods, and storms repeatedly erased physical structures. Entire neighborhoods disappeared, sometimes within hours. What endured were habits, methods, and routines passed through daily practice rather than formal record. Skills survived because they were useful. Construction techniques evolved to bend instead of resist. Maintenance became constant. Preparation reduced loss. Discipline was not aesthetic. It was protective. Craft traditions carried this logic forward. Tools were repaired, reused, and adjusted to material limits. Waste carried consequences. Carelessness invited failure. Knowledge accumulated slowly, shaped by outcome rather than theory. Memory also shaped space itself. Streets followed paths tested by time. Buildings reflected lessons learned from collapse and fire. Neighborhoods developed routines that balanced efficiency with caution. Change was approached carefully. New ideas were examined rather than rejected. Innovation was accepted when it improved function without breaking balance. Sudden transformation was treated with restraint. Shared experience strengthened social cohesion. Trust formed around systems proven over time instead of promises. People relied on habit, cooperation, and preparation. Resilience emerged quietly. Modern technology increased speed, but did not replace foundation. Preparedness remained routine. Maintenance stayed constant. Memory continued to guide action even as conditions changed. Japan does not preserve its history by freezing it in place. It preserves continuity by using what works. Through repetition and discipline, meaning survives motion. The land continues to shift. Disruption remains possible. Life responds through awareness rather than illusion of control. This relationship between memory and action explains how continuity persists inside constant change. This approach shaped identity without rigidity. People learned to value reliability over perfection. What lasted was what could be repeated, repaired, and taught. Memory became active, not symbolic. Across generations, this logic reinforced patience. Progress was measured carefully. Attention replaced urgency. Stability emerged from habit rather than promise, allowing life to continue without demanding certainty. In a landscape shaped by movement, memory offered orientation. It did not prevent change, but helped guide response. Through continuity of practice, Japan maintained coherence while adapting. Continuity here is not passive. It requires effort, discipline, and attention. Through these qualities, the past remains present, not as weight, but as support. This balance between memory and movement defines Japan's endurance. Change arrives, the ground shifts, and life continues, guided by experience rather than expectation. Through this process, continuity survives without resisting change, remaining flexible, grounded, and quietly resilient. Japan's cities stand as some of the most complex human environments ever created within unstable land. Dense populations, towering structures, and intricate infrastructure exist directly above shifting ground. This contradiction is not accidental. It reflects centuries of learning how to organize life where certainty cannot be assumed. Urban growth followed geography rather than ignoring it. Cities expanded along plains, river mouths, and coastlines where space allowed settlement. Mountains limited outward growth, forcing density inward. As a result, cities developed vertically and efficiently, using every available area with care. Space became precious, and order became essential. Risk shaped design from the beginning. Fires, earthquakes, and floods destroyed early cities repeatedly. Each reconstruction brought adjustment. Streets widened, materials changed. Building techniques evolved. Urban form became a response to disaster rather than an attempt to eliminate it. Cities were not made invulnerable. They were made adaptable. This logic continues in modern urban planning. Buildings are engineered to move with earthquakes rather than resist them. Transportation systems include redundancies. Emergency procedures are embedded into everyday life. Preparedness is not separate from routine. It is part of how cities function. Despite scale and density, Japanese cities often preserve human rhythm. Neighborhoods maintain local identity. Small streets, shops, and communal spaces persist alongside major infrastructure. Order does not erase intimacy, it supports it. This balance allows large populations to coexist without constant conflict. This balance between density and control required constant awareness. Cities functioned because people adjusted their behavior instinctively, understanding that small disruptions could ripple outward. Order was not enforced through force, but maintained through shared expectation and learned response. Urban life also reflects restraint. Noise, movement, and interaction follow unspoken rules shaped by shared awareness. Crowds move efficiently because cooperation is expected. Individual behavior adjusts to collective need. These patterns did not arise from ideology. They emerged from necessity in confined space. Technology accelerated urban life, but did not remove constraint. Trains move with precision. Systems rely on timing and discipline. When disruption occurs, response is immediate and coordinated. Cities pause, adjust, and resume. Recovery is not dramatic. It is methodical. Natural forces remain present even in the most modern settings. Earthquakes interrupt routines. Typhoons reshape coastlines. Rivers swell. Cities respond without denial. Risk is acknowledged, not hidden. This honesty reinforces trust in systems refined over time. Japan's cities are not monuments to control. They are evidence of negotiation. Between land and structure, between risk and order. Between individual movement and collective stability. Urban life continues not because danger disappeared, but because adaptation became constant. In these environments, resilience is visible but quiet. It exists in planning, habit, and response. Cities endure because they accept instability as permanent. Through organization rather than dominance, life persists in places built on risk. Japan is often associated with advanced technology, precision engineering, and efficiency. These qualities did not emerge in opposition to nature. They developed in response to it. In a land where the ground can move and systems can fail suddenly, technology became a way to manage uncertainty rather than eliminate it. Transportation reflects this philosophy clearly. Rail networks operate with remarkable accuracy, yet they are built to pause when danger appears. Earthquakes automatically halt movement. Inspections follow before resumption. Speed yields to safety without debate. Control is exercised through restraint rather than force. Manufacturing follows similar principles. Processes emphasize consistency, maintenance, and incremental improvement. Small adjustments accumulate over time, strengthening systems without dramatic overhaul. This approach values stability within motion, allowing progress without inviting collapse. Technology also reshaped daily life. Early warning systems alert communities to seismic activity. Infrastructure absorbs shock through design rather than resistance. Communication networks prioritize clarity during crisis. These tools support awareness rather than denial. They acknowledge limits instead of promising certainty. This approach shaped public trust. People learned that systems would not pretend to be infallible. When warnings appeared or services paused, the response felt deliberate rather than chaotic. Transparency during disruption reinforced confidence, allowing society to accept interruption as part of responsible operation rather than failure. The relationship between people and technology reflects this balance. Automation increases efficiency, but human oversight remains central. Training emphasizes response as much as operation. Responsibility does not disappear into machines. It remains shared and practiced. Modern Japan demonstrates that technology does not replace environmental awareness. It sharpens it. Precision emerges from respect for constraint. Control is understood as temporary and conditional. Systems are built to bend, pause, and recover. In this way, technology becomes another layer in Japan's long adaptation to instability. It does not promise dominance over nature. It supports coexistence within it. Progress continues, guided by attention rather than assumption, and shaped by an understanding that limits are not failures, but facts of life. Modern Japan often appears detached from its natural foundations. Cities glow at night. Infrastructure hums with precision. Daily life moves quickly and efficiently. Yet beneath this surface, the same ancient system continues to operate. The ground shifts. The seasons turn. The forces that shape the islands remain active. This awareness influences how people relate to time. Long-term certainty remains rare. Plans are made carefully, with flexibility built in. Adjustment is expected rather than resented. Progress is measured in stability maintained rather than speed achieved. Modern lifestyles coexist with inherited habits. Seasonal foods remain important. Public spaces reflect restraint and order. Even in dense urban settings, moments of quiet and reflection persist. These patterns do not resist modernity, they integrate it. Work culture reflects this balance as well. Precision and discipline support efficiency. But responsibility remains personal. Systems function because individuals remain attentive. Automation assists rather than replaces judgment. Errors are addressed methodically rather than denied. Global influence continues to shape Japan, yet absorption remains selective. Trends arrive, are tested, and adapted. What fits local rhythm stays. What disrupts balance fades. Identity remains grounded even as outward appearance evolves. This coexistence of ancient system and modern life defines Japan's present. Progress does not replace foundation, it layers upon it. The land remains active beneath concrete and steel, shaping possibility without constant visibility. Modern Japan demonstrates that advancement does not require detachment from nature. It requires understanding. By acknowledging limits and maintaining awareness, life continues smoothly within a landscape that never fully settles. The result is not perfection, but balance. A society capable of moving forward without losing orientation. Modern life unfolds inside an ancient process, guided by attention rather than illusion, and sustained through adaptation rather than control. Japan cannot be understood as a finished place, but as a living system shaped by constant interaction between land, water, and people. The forces that form the islands remain active beneath everyday life, quietly influencing movement, settlement, and survival even when nothing appears to change on the surface today. Mountains continue rising, fault lines continue shifting, and volcanoes continue breathing beneath forests, towns, and cities. These processes do not pause for modern life. They exist alongside it, shaping risk, opportunity, and responsibility across generations without warning, control, or regard for human schedules or borders at all times. Japan endures not by resisting these forces, but by integrating them into how society functions. Change is treated as expected. Systems are designed to adjust. Communities prepare to respond, and life continues through practiced awareness rather than denial, panic, or the promise of permanent stability under pressure. Modern Japan reflects this balance clearly. Technology advances cities, expand, and daily life accelerates. Yet beneath these layers, familiar principles remain. Awareness, restraint, preparation, and memory continue guiding decisions, design, and behavior. Even as speed, complexity, and global influence increase year after year without erasing foundations formed by experience alone. Japan identity relies less on permanence and more on responsiveness. What lasts is not form, but method. The ability to observe, adjust, repair, and continue becomes more important than control, certainty, or dominance. This logic guided survival across centuries of disruption without guarantees, safety, or stability in changing environments continually. For those who look closely, Japan shows how life persists within instability. Not through denial or dominance, but through cooperation with forces larger than human scale. The land moves, society responds, and balance is maintained through effort, discipline, and shared awareness, instead of assumption, entitlement, or control over time. Japan is not a monument to mastery over nature. It is evidence of coexistence. A place where the earth continues its work and where life learned to continue with it, enduring unfinished and resilient across generations without final resolution or closure, within constant change and movement that never stops here.